Good morning. I'm Larry Green, a member of your parish committee, and we are excited to have so many of you here in person and online. And I'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors who might be here. Our mission here is to build community, search for meaning, deepen our spirituality, and work together to make a better world. For newcomers or others who would like to learn more about First Parish or Unitarian Universalism, please visit uuwayland.org or contact Kate Holland, our Director of Lifespan Education and Engagement. You can also reach out to me or any other member of the parish committee or to Reverend Stephanie if you have any ideas or questions about First Parish. I would like to extend a big thanks to all of our service participants who are listed in the order of service. To keep us all safe, we currently recommend those in person to remain masked. All participants, like myself, who are unmasked have tested negative this morning. Please join me now in taking a moment to say hello to one another. Hello. And also turn around and wave to the camera back there for those people online. Let our service begin.
Hello and welcome. My name is Alyssa Lee. I'm the ministerial intern here, and my pronouns are she or they. As poet Mina Alexander writes, "The periodic pleasure of small happenings is upon us." Even as there are many difficulties that remain in our community, for our country, and for our world, and even as many of us are nervous about public gatherings, and unsure about the constantly changing color codes for risk, perhaps we can still find time to recognize these periodic pleasures of small happenings all around us. A tree with red and yellow leaves, and the sunlight hitting it at just the right moment to dazzle you as you drive by. The crisp autumn air, kids finding crunchy leaves to jump on wherever they can, apple picking, and the promise of time spent with family and friends in the various holiday seasons on the horizon. In the hour we have together today, may we recognize that yes, fear remains with many of us, but likewise, there are particular pleasures that this season brings. Let us remember them as we journey together into this hour. And let us begin now by lighting the chalice. We'll call up the Cullen family.
Good morning. Please join us as we say together, with open minds and loving hearts, we gather to search for meaning, to care for one another, and to work together for a better world.
Our opening hymn today is hymn 200, A Mighty Fortress, which I have to say is one of my lifelong favorite hymns. And if you don't know the story, Martin Luther, who was a Protestant reformer, and he wrote this when he was basically hiding from the Pope, who was a bit angry with him for challenging all of his way of thinking about religion. The theme of the service today is comfort in the face of adversity and challenge. And so to me, this hymn just conveys that. Thinking about Luther sitting there in there's a castle, I can't remember the name of the castle, Wartburg maybe, in fear for his life, for his religious beliefs. So please rise in body or in spirit, hymn 200. You may be seated. Okay. I haven't done a time chronologies for a while, but if you remember, I often need help because I don't do them very often. So if there are like maybe 4 helpers I could get to come up here, preferably the smaller size, but any size is fine. coming this direction too. Okay. Heidi, look at Heidi. Okay. So, Bob, you were the first volunteer, so will you open my bag for me? That way you just zip it open for the kids. No, there's nothing that will jump out, I promise. So, I will say, okay, that's good. Thank you. October is known as, is there a holiday coming up here? Halloween, right. And Halloween is known as what, a spooky, scary holiday? Ooh. Good. And yet sometimes being scared isn't much fun, is it? I know some people think it's fun. I personally don't. Yes, some people do. Yes. But sometimes it's not good to be scared or to be afraid. And when we're like that, we like to find sometimes things to comfort us, to make us feel safer and feel better. So I brought some things that help me to feel safe and better. And does somebody want to pick the first object out of the bag? Any guesses what that is? It's a cat. So you guys, and it was you who brought your own stuffy in today? Yeah. So this was my childhood stuffy. Her name is Maria. She lost her nose. And so from the time I was a small kid, and I know a lot of kids, and I've got a lot of older kids here too, like to have stuffies that help. I think that will be less noisy now. Like to have stuffies so that they don't, it helps you feel comforted, right? Something to hug. And sometimes we have stuffies that also, you lost the mic? Okay. It's like actual living, breathing stuffies named pets also can help us feel comfort as well. Okay, what else? Who wants to pick the next object? There's things under that object, the large object too. Want to grab something? Did your sister want to help you?
Yeah.
Can you hold that up down the aisle so maybe they can see it on the camera? People there. Go see. There you go. Okay. If you can see this, it is a picture of my son headbutting a goat. And he worked at Drumlin Farm for many summers, which was a happy place for him. But also it's to symbolize, I think a lot of times we find comfort from our family. How many of us run to our moms or our dads when we want to hug to feel better, right? And sometimes moms and dads run to their kids to get hugs too. And so family and friends are often a source of comfort. You know, maybe sometimes if you pick up and you want to hang out with a friend or something to make you feel better, right? Less scared, more safe. Okay, what else is in the bag? Who else is going to grab something? Okay, do you know what that is? A life jacket. Now, on one hand, it's obvious a life jacket provides safety when you swim, but actually what this is about is I love to kayak. And when I get in my kayak and I sit down, I feel safe. Do you guys have activities or things that you do that just makes you feel better? A boat? You like to be on the boat? Yep. Are there fun things you do that just make you feel good? Reading a book or playing soccer or watching TV? Yeah. So I think sometimes activities that we have, meditating, yoga, also can help us feel safe and bring us comfort. Okay, there's one more thing tucked down at the bottom there. Can somebody find it? Who's going? Those are the First Parish in Wayland stickers. And there's a whole pack, so if you want one, just let me know, you grab one. And that's to symbolize places. There are places that can bring us comfort when we're feeling afraid and need a sense of safety. And hopefully First Parish here is one of those places that for everybody to feel safe. So thank you. My hope for all of us is that we all have lots of things, people and places and activities that help us to feel safe and bring us comfort, including the people and place of First Parish. So we will now, if you want to throw your stuff back in the bag. Thank you very much. And we will sing you out for Seek. On the theme of Comfort Me, it seemed obvious to sing this lovely song, Comfort Me, from the Teal Hymnal 1002. Please remain seated as we sing and prepare for a time of prayer and meditation.
I offer this prayer, this meditation, as both the seed and the fruit. As you can, let's bring our attention to our breath. Our breath unites our mind and our body. And too often, our mind and our bodies are separate. On my in-breath, I say to myself, I know I am breathing in. I know that I'm breathing in. And on my out-breath, I say, I know I am breathing out. I know that I'm breathing out. On my in-breath, I smile. On my in-breath, I smile. On my out-breath, I am comforted. And on my out-breath, I am comforted. On my in-breath, I am home. On my in-breath, I am home. And on my out-breath, I have arrived. My out-breath, I have arrived. On my in-breath, the present moment. On my in-breath, the present moment. And on my out-breath, this beautiful moment. On my out-breath, this beautiful moment. I am comforted, and I smile. Our only condition for happiness is in the present moment. Our only condition for joy is in the present moment. Let's celebrate the beauty of this present moment. Amen.
I am Kathy Schmidt, a lay minister of this congregation. This is a time in our service we set aside to share our joys and sorrows. In both our sharing and in the support given by our witness, we affirm our covenant to care for one another. As of now, I don't believe anyone has submitted in advance a written joy or sorrow. But if you wish now, please add your joy or sorrow to the chat. Or if you are in person, please come to the front, light a candle if you wish. And as a reminder, our services are now being streamed live on YouTube. Oh, I also can bring a mic to anyone who wishes me to do so.
I light a candle. A previous coworker of mine passed away very suddenly at a only 40 years old, so I just wanted to light a candle for him and his family.
I just wanted to say a note of gratitude for all of those who helped yesterday with tangle here, the Henderson service. Our sanctuary was completely full yesterday with a lot of sad, but also joyful and grateful people for the lives of Mary and Willa Henderson. Wayne Henderson had been a long-time participant in Music Sundays, and so we were the host to that service. And a lot of people just expressed gratitude and appreciation for both the beauty of this building and also for the many volunteers from the congregation who supported that service. So just such a gift to be able to support those sacred moments. So thank you for everyone who participated in that.
We do have a joy that has been, oops, I just lost it. Actually, I have it on my phone. Suzanne and Bill Wrights are the proud grandparents of a new baby boy, Henry John. I think I'll light a candle for that. Oh, great. This is from Ellen Dussard. We have a joy and a deep sorrow. Our joy is our wedding anniversary, and our sorrow is the tragic death of our neighbor, a young father who died in a pedestrian accident. I'm going to light a candle for the Dussards. And now I light this final candle as a symbol of all the joys and the sorrows that we hold in our hearts and our minds.
Today for the offering, we have a shared plate. Part of the offering will be going to the Sudbury Wayland Lincoln Domestic Violence Roundtable. This is a nonprofit whose mission is to promote safe and healthy relationships, raising public awareness about abusive and controlling behaviors, whether exhibited through bullying, teen dating, violence, domestic violence, or elder abuse, and ending relationship violence in all its forms. They do this largely by providing public education and providing assistance to agencies, health professionals, and other community partners. This week, the Roundtable also co-sponsored the Light the Night Vigil with First Parish, which was a powerful evening in which the community came together to remember those who have died because of domestic violence and dating abuse, and those who are still living with its impact on their lives. I hope you will support the important mission of this organization. If you're online, you can look for ways to donate in the order of service. If you're in person, they'll be passing around the baskets, and you can also look at the orange card in your pews for ways to donate online as well. Now we will gratefully receive the offering. Thank you. Today's reading is from the 2022 book, The Stolen Year: How COVID Changed Children's Lives and Where We Go Now by Anya Kamenetz, an education correspondent for NPR. This excerpt picks up an interview with Jeannie, a mom and a teacher. Jeannie is the one who brought home to me just what school closures did to families like hers, not just practically, but emotionally. She said she was being hard on herself for not coping too well in the first weeks. I didn't have to go to work, I was at home and safe, I had everything. Nothing was bad, and I could not figure out why I was so crazy. I was so off. And then one day, she was sitting in the car waiting to pick up her daughter Ruby from gymnastics, when it occurred to her the school closures were bringing her back to her childhood trauma. I'm reliving my mom's divorces. This is what's happening. This is why I've been crazy, because there's no stability. That flash of insight, in turn, helped her to have compassion for her neighbors. Jeannie explained, "We've been attacked on Facebook and social media. The parents are upset, and I'm mad at them. I'm hurt that they would turn on us. But I also understand, because most of the people in my area have gone through a lot of trauma as well. We're poor and uneducated. They grew up in trauma, and then they put the trauma on their kids. It's just a cycle. And so there's stable places where we take them from too. And I don't want to get angry because we didn't provide for them. We didn't provide that stable place for them this year or their children."
Thanks, Alyssa, and thanks, Polly, for that beautiful piece of music. It's okay to not be okay. Have you heard that said? It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to not always be fine or good. It's okay to struggle, to have a bad day, a bad month, a bad year. Not everything is always positive. We do not always need to feel like smiling. Pretending otherwise can become a problem of its own. In rejecting what she calls toxic positivity, psychologist Dr. Jamie Zuckerman explains, "Not only is it okay to not feel okay, it is essential. An abnormal emotional response to an abnormal situation is normal. We cannot simply pick the emotions we want to have. It just does not work that way. We simply feel what we feel. Sometimes we are in a bad mood. Sometimes we are having a hard time adjusting to what's just happened to us or around us. And sometimes what happens is out of the ordinary, abnormal, unexpected, and possibly traumatic. Times like March of 2020, when the governor declared a state of emergency, closing schools, businesses, and houses of worship. When the roads and the skies quieted. When pots and pans banged from the balconies in New York City. When refrigerator trucks idled outside hospitals as makeshift morgues. And starting this year, I so wanted everything to just be fine and good. Can't we just finally put this pandemic behind us? Can't we just turn off the cameras and all come back in person to services, to events and meetings? Can't everything just be normal again? It is so easy to hope for these things. It is understandable to feel this way, to long for what we remember as simpler, safer, less chaotic. And as someone who resists both Zoom and masks whenever I can, I sympathize with the longing to put the pandemic in the past. And in some ways, the pandemic is past. At least the part of the pandemic defined by global shutdowns and lockdowns, by closed offices and classrooms, by the utter shock and total uncertainty about what was happening. Indeed, enough time has now passed from that first year of 2020 that the books seeking to make sense of what we experienced have begun to arrive. We are beginning to have a sense of distance and perspective to name what did happen and what it may mean for us today and in the years to come. In reading these accounts, I noticed the word trauma appearing again and again. As a May 2022 article in the Georgia State University Research magazine explains, the COVID-19 pandemic has been the most traumatic collective event of our lifetime. And after 2 excruciating years and more than 1 million deaths in the US alone, it is still unclear when or if the pandemic will end. That uncertainty is one of many stressors, along with worries about health, family, work, and finances that have taken a significant toll on mental health. In a recent survey, the American Psychological Association found that nearly 2/3 of respondents said their lives have been permanently changed by the pandemic. The report also showed that a large proportion of the country has simply been living in sustained survival mode with significant consequences for mental health. The World Health Organization says the pandemic has sparked a 25% increase in anxiety and depression worldwide. We are not all okay, and that's okay. What we've been through is wildly abnormal. Struggling with how to respond in 2020 or 2022 is normal too. I notice I'm not okay in several different ways. For one thing, I'm more irritable than I used to be. My generosity of spirit perhaps worn a bit thinner. And even as I get annoyed at how others act unkindly or too quickly rush to judgment, I have to pause to consider that maybe they are also feeling a bit worn down and less flexible towards others as well. In fact, it was in just such a moment of reflective awareness that I decided to preach today's sermon about the ongoing traumatic impact of COVID on our psychological, emotional, and spiritual health. As the saying goes, pastors preach the sermon they need to hear. It's taken me a long time to start to acknowledge the ways my life has permanently changed by COVID, and I'm pretty sure I don't actually have it figured out yet. But what I do know is that I often cringe when I look at pictures from the years just before the pandemic started. There I am, smiling widely beside a friend in a crowded theater before a play. How ludicrous, I think now, to be so happy and oblivious to the ordinary gift of walking into a building to share space with a crowd of strangers without a thought other than how good our seats will be. And then I realized I am not angry at that younger, innocent self. I am still grieving and shaken by all that I lost, that we lost, when our lives were transformed by a microscopic virus. A virus that robbed us of community. of mindlessly sharing spaces with strangers, of comfortably moving through airports and office buildings, grocery stores, and living rooms. It has taken me even longer to realize how my March of 2020 reactions were infused by prior periods of my life that felt chaotic and out of control. Times like my brief marriage in my 20s, which left lingering imprints from the fear I felt in that relationship. Reading a passage from the book The Stolen Year by education correspondent Anya Kamenetz, I resonated with Jeannie, a teacher who connects reliving her old traumas to the new trauma surrounding school lockdowns. She explains, "I'm reliving my mom's divorces. This is what's happening. This is why I've been crazy, because there's no stability." She then imagines how her angry neighbors and parents must also be bearing the weight of their own past traumas and fears, breaking into the current moment of chaos. Jeannie's story as a parent and a teacher is but one of many in Kamenetz's books about kids and COVID. From the impact of the loss of childcare to the compounding impact of COVID on kids already impacted by racism. She explores not just how the pandemic created problems, but also amplified the problems already in our social systems. In this sense, the pandemic simply showed us all what was already true. Not everybody is okay. So let me say it again. It's okay to not be okay. We have been through the most traumatic collective event of our lifetime. To respond abnormally or differently than we typically do to events is a normal reaction to an abnormal event. And while it is critical to name this shared reality, I do not mean to suggest there is no path forward. But it is to say that I, for one, do not want the path to be a golden brick road showered with sunshine affirmations that everything is fine now, because the losses still hurt, and my proverbial eyes are still adjusting to an altered perception of how to view the world. In trying to make sense of things, stories have long been a tool for meaning making. Journalists distinguish between current event stories and evergreen stories. While current events grab the headlines and the rolling footer of cable news channels, evergreen stories are the content that endures year after year. Evergreen stories can also be those familiar stories that remind us of timeless truths. The kinds of stories we often found told and retold in religious traditions. For example, the story of Jesus feeding the multitude in the Christian scriptures. In this story, a crowd of thousands has amassed in a remote area to listen to Jesus speak and teach. As any event planner knows, crowds create multiple challenges, including how to feed them all. Concerned, Jesus' disciples approach him with the idea to just disperse the crowd. Let them go find their own food in the nearby villages. Jesus counters, "No, you give them something to eat." The disciples are confounded and explain, "But Jesus, we only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes from this kid here." You can just imagine the disciples throwing skeptical glances at each other, can't you? Perhaps with a sigh, Jesus asked the disciples to bring the food to him. Directing the crowd to sit, Jesus takes the fish and the bread, looks to heaven, gives thanks for the food, and begins to disperse the food. Passing the food to the disciples for distribution, the people gathered all ate and were satisfied. with multiple baskets of food remaining. So one explanation for this miracle is the idea of magically replicating fish and bread, like something out of Harry Potter. But my favorite explanation is that when the crowds witnessed the generosity of one child willing to share their 2 loaves and 5 fish, they all responded by opening their own bags to share with others what they had brought. This reminds me of the great toilet paper shortage of March 2020. As shutdowns took hold and people rushed to stock up, suddenly toilet paper had become a rare commodity, right? Not a roll to be found on the sparse metal shelves of local stores. A call for help went out on the First Parish listserv, and a plan was hatched. A table was placed in the unlocked shed 12 outside. Those with rolls to spare would put them there. Those with need would come by and take what they needed. Suddenly working together, we had what we needed, a COVID miracle. While I speak in some jest, there is profound truth in both stories. There is magic to be found in the power of community. Together we can find the sustenance we need and perhaps even the abundance. In generating fear of strangers, of crowds, of being in shared spaces, COVID stole community from us. Certainly we fought back, seeking to reform community online and outside, but we still felt the trauma of the sudden loss of community just as we needed it most to weather the chaos of the pandemic. And if you are still not feeling okay, that's okay. We have been through the most traumatic collective event of our lifetime. Healing is not going to be immediate. Healing will take time. And like all grief, it will come in stages. While there is much that remains unsaid and unknown as we move forward into a world still facing many problems, what I do know is there is magic in community. And I believe that while our path forward may not be all sunshines and smiles, it will be a more sustainable path if we move forward together on this path. So let us offer what we can and receive from others what they offer. Let us bravely name our losses and our trauma. Let us overcome the fear of others and rebuild communities of love, support, and perhaps even abundance. So may it be. Amen. And we have a closing song that will begin with the choir, and then we will join in when they'll cue us. So if you can rise in body or in spirit and turn to the choir loft, and we'll put the camera on the choir loft too. And the lyric for the verse we're going to sing is in your order of service, but let them tell you when to sing.
Sound of one who makes us sure.
I love the fact that we can sing in one voice, and I know those of you at home, I hope you were singing along too, because we remember you and you are part of our community also. Sustained by our connections to each other and to all that is holy, let us go and be beyond these walls, bringing more light and life, love and justice to our shared world. Amen.